It would have been bad if it would have been someone else and I would have said their name. So just want you to know I'm still one of the youngest ones. Pastor Aaron, Izzy, you're older than me, so you're still very handsome. You're still very handsome. I do think as I get older, I'm supposed to get more mature. It hasn't happened yet, just so I just want you to know that. I do like to joke around. I probably will call on a few people's names. I already prepped Miss Nicole. Hey, it's coming your way today. Hey, but, Pastor Hector did talk about, his opportunity to take a break. And I do got to tell you, and I bragged about him, and I wasn't going to brag about him again, but it's just so easy to brag about you because you're so good. My kids asked me a couple weeks ago, Dad, is it hard to write a message every single week? And I got to tell you, it is because, you read the context and you're like, well, how do I connect with this? Because sometimes I just don't connect with the word. And so it's studying, listening to other sermons, reading, studying, ask Pastor Hector for his opinion. And then you end up writing basically a term paper every single week. And for over the past couple weeks, this man preached Sunday, Good Friday service on Friday, preached on Sunday, following week, preached on Sunday, preached on Monday at that men's conference that I went to you with, and then literally left Tuesday morning to go sow into some other pastors and to go share the word with them. And I know that takes a lot. I couldn't do it, but you're the man. I just want you to know that. You are the man. I'm sure it's easy to be the man also when you have a great staff, and especially Pastor Aaron, Miss Sonia, Nicole. I can go down with Zach and Cassie and all them too as well. And Candy, your right-hand lady over there, who I hear amazing things. My wife had so many pictures from T. She came out just saying it was awesome. I think she's the only one who wore a hat or whatever. And she thought she should have got best dressed. I don't know. So if Pastor Candy, if we can somehow get next year best dressed. But hey, it is great to be with you guys today. I was at the East campus today, and we had to bring out 3 to 4 more rows, which was just awesome to have. Yeah. We had 22 returning people that came from the Easter service that came back today, which was just so encouraging. And it was birthed out of here because of the faithfulness of this man and this church. So I want to say, guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity to go do that. But we are in a series that just started called the Hall of Faith. Last week, we started it at the East Campus. We share one baptism tank, so Pastor Hector said he's keeping it, so we didn't get it. So that's why we didn't do it. I don't want him to think he was holier than me, but I'm just saying that's the reason why we didn't do it. But we did start the Hall of Faith, and anyone who knows a correlation, it's basically the Hall of Fame, right? Everyone knows what the Hall of Fame is. Mainly we can, we tie it in with sports. You got to be great at your sport. You got to be great at your sport. Maybe you got to have good character. I don't know. Ray Lewis is in the Hall of Fame, and I think he killed someone. But I'm just saying, there's not a high standard. That's truth. That's true. I mean, it's truth. But he's in the Hall of Fame. I asked my wife the other day when I was telling her about this message, she was just like, what do you think your best thing that how you could be in the Hall of Fame? And I'm like, well, I'm really good at baseball, And she's like, well, what about this family? What is your best attribute that you bring to this family? And I told her, I said, well, I know there's something that you and I both do very well that would be in the Hall of Fame. And she goes, well, what is that? I go, we both play the silent treatment like it's the best thing we know how to do. I don't know if anyone else, I know no one else. I know you guys definitely don't. No one else plays a silent treatment with their spouse here, right? I just want to make sure. Thank you for waving your hand in the back. Thank you. I tell my wife, she's like, why do you say that? I go, babe, the other day when you were giving me the silent treatment, I walked into the kitchen and you literally went like this. There's 10 feet of space here. Did you really have to let me know that? So I returned the favor, walking down the hall, and there's more than enough room to get through this hall. And I was like, just so she knows that I'm also giving her the silent treatment. Hall of Faith in this category. Again, I'm sure you guys don't do that. Good for you. Amazing. But then you ask yourself, how does someone get into the Hall of Faith? I would have said earlier in my life, it had to be the holy rollers that I had come in contact with. The really spiritual people. And look, I'm the only one who deals with spiritual people. I get it. None of you guys can relate to this. But I'm just going to tell you from my experience what I would have thought would have been in the Hall of Faith. I had a roommate back in the day over at Biola University. His name was Philip. Philip was 24 years old, and I was only 17. And I don't know why this loser, Philip, was still in the dorms with me. Philip, are you watching online? But Philip, He was 24 and he always had his Bible out, which is great. But I was really occupied on my classes too as well. And we had chapel, so, I thought I was getting enough Bible in. But one day after practice, because we're all on the baseball team, our coach took us to Huntington Beach and we had to run on the sand for 2 hours. They call it Hell Week back then because they want to put you through hell is what the idea is, that you just run. Well, we come back and all of us are like, man, we're thirsty. Let's go to Chevron and get a Gatorade. So I turned to Philip, being a good Samaritan that I am. I said to him, I go, hey, Philip, you thirsty? Would you like me to go grab you a Gatorade? And he goes, I thirst for the Lord. Okay. Do you want something to drink or not? That's the response. I just want to know, that's a holy roller, right? Fast forward a week later, there was a new taco truck around the corner from Biola. And when you're in Anaheim, down in LA, there's a lot of Mexican influence. Where my Mexicans at? Yeah, we know. You see a taco truck, we're gonna try it. That's what it is. All of them are the same, but hey, this one could be the one, right? I remember telling Philip, I go, hey, it's real late. We got us out of practice real late one day, and so the cafeteria closed. I said, hey, Philip, we're gonna go grab some tacos. You hungry? You wanna go eat something? He's like, man shall not live by bread alone, but for every mouth that comes from word, blah, 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 blah. I said, Philip, if I asked Jesus to go get a taco, I'm sure he would have said, extra hot sauce, please. That's what I think would have happened. Right? Like, why is it every single person that you'd have a conversation with would have this like overly Christian religious response? I think in my mind, that was what these people had to do that are listed in Hebrews 11. Overly spiritual. Everything they say is praise God, hallelujah. I just went to the bathroom, Mom. I don't get it. But that is not what we see in Hebrews 11. These are not the characters of these people who are conceited and wanting to show them how religious and how godly they are. I would encourage you, like that young man over there who got up and talked. I gotta tell you, Logan, right? I gotta tell you, man, let your walk do the talking, bro. Let your walk do the talking. I think one of the best things you said up here is you went and said something to the fact like, I don't really thought I had to know the doctrine of the Bible. I thought I had to do this, this, and this. No, all you have to do is believe and accept Jesus, and guess what? You're in. You're in, right? It's like the thief on the cross. That man didn't say the Lord's Prayer. He didn't say anything. God says, you're with me now. You're with me. Whatever needs to be worked out in your relationship with God, that'll be between you and God, Logan, and he'll deal with it at that time. But right then, I'm proud of you, man, and I don't even know you. So honestly, encouraging stuff. But Paul talks in Hebrews 11, he gives a list of the criteria of what it is to get in the hall of faith. Thank Jesus that someone wrote that down so maybe I can follow it. It shouldn't be that simple. If it's written down and he says, this is how you get in the hall of faith, I said, yeah, let me do it. He writes in Hebrews 11, 1-3. This is what Paul writes. Faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. Through their faith, the people in days of old earned a great reputation. By faith, we understand that the entire universe was formed at God's command, that what we now see did not come from anything that can be seen. Man, it seems rich. It seems like full. It seems like, what did he mean? I know I'm a pastor, and I probably should have already known what this meant, but I think I struggle. What do you mean? Well, we're in luck. Paul goes on in verse 6 and kind of ties the whole thing in together for us in this moment. He says in verse 6, and it is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. Faith and sincerely seeking God. Now, how do you seek God? In 2 Corinthians 7, verse 14, it says this, which I needed some help in this area. He says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves. But God, by the way, I just need to preach to myself. I don't need anyone else in here to know I definitely need to humble myself. Will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sins and will heal their land. It doesn't take rocket scientists to know the way you sincerely seek God is what? Prayer. Prayer. Sorry for the people who have a hard time praying. I just said that out loud. Right? Because I know back in the day, and it's just me, no one else needs to raise their hand. I know it's just me. Prayer was hard. Prayer was boring. Oh, yeah, I got to tell you what. There was the times that your parents would tell you to get on your knees and you'd pray and you say, well, for how long? And your dad would be like, until you feel God show up. He showed up, Dad. He showed up. Told me it's dinner time, right? But prayer was boring. It wasn't something that I longed for. I mean, even to the older ages of 28 to 31, I would sit there on my knees and pray. Who here prays at night? Every night before you go to bed. Is your prayer something like this? Thank you, Lord, for dinner. Thank you for my smoking hot wife, Isis. Thank you for the little kids you gave me. Amen. Right? Like that's partly what my prayers were for a long period of time. And it didn't dawn on me until I got a dream one night when I said, God, why did I struggle praying? I am not Miss Sophia on Friday Night Fire who can go on for 4 hours and pray. And I sit here and look at this lady and say, God, I want a piece of that. I had this dream, and in this dream, God goes, can you be married and in a relationship with your wife if you never come home? Could you be? I can call myself married, but can I be in a relationship with my wife if I never come home? Can we as believers call that we are in a relationship with God if we never come home, even into the church? Can we call ourselves in a relationship with God if we never communicate through prayer to God? How do you sincerely seek a relationship with a person? You ask them questions. I bet you guys have been married a long time. I'm not gonna say the number, but I know Pastor Hector's over 50, so I know it's been a long time. I didn't call that one out. But I'm sure you asked, what's your favorite color? What do you like doing? I don't think there's anything wrong with having prayer where literally at the very beginning, you're like, God, I just wanna know what your favorite color is. It seems so small, but yet it's really so personable to know in this moment. I told my wife the other day, I was watching the Kings game, and I don't know, they were up by 7, then they were down by 3, and they were up by 7. I'm like, you gotta make the playoffs. And I'm into it. There's like a minute and a half left. You know what my wife comes into? She's like, babe, we need to talk. Oh my. Was anybody else watching that game the other day? They're up by 7, they're down, and they're like, we need this win. We don't want to be the ninth seed. And I looked at her, and I could hear in my heart and in my mind, turn off the TV. Turn off the TV. And I forgot just to press pause. So I know, Aaron, when I get as old as you, I'll know that kind of stuff, you know, when I hit that age. I didn't pause, I turned off the TV and I looked at her and I was like, what? You know, how else do you respond in that moment? I know I'm the only one who responds to their wife like that, what? And she started telling me about her day and her nails, and I'm like, I don't care. You know, that's what I'm saying to myself. But all of a sudden, God started dealing with my heart. And as this conversation's going on and going on and going on, she looks at me and she goes, babe, I just want peace with you. Oh, how convicted did I feel in that moment? And as she kept on talking, babe, I just want peace with you. I just want to share life with you. And then I told my wife, you know what? I just want to have a continuous grateful heart for who you are and what you bring to this family. And at the end of this 30-minute conversation that ruined my night, led to a deeper love and helped our relationship that night. So when we got in bed, we never touch each other. You stay on your side, I'll stay on my side. Holding hands, kissing each other's cheeks, telling them how much we love them. If you can do that yourself with God and push through having to turn off the TV, having to ignore the outside noise, sit through 5 to 10 minutes of boring prayer to have that breakthrough to where you will hold your groom's hand. What will God put in your heart? What will God stir up in you? I'm sure it's more than just some peace and gratefulness of my wife, because he gives better gifts than my wife does. Don't tell her I said that. The other part is he talks about prayer. He talks about faith. Paul gives examples of the faith in this, and I'll let you guys read Hebrews 11 because it's a long one, but Paul makes a point of talking about seeking God in your faith, and it says, by faith Abel brought a more acceptable offering to God than Cain did. It was by faith that Enoch was taken up to heaven without dying. Who wants some faith like that? You mean I don't have to die, you can just take me? Sign me up. I'll take it. It was by faith that Abraham obeyed when God called him to leave home and to go to another land that God would give him and his inheritance. It was by faith that Jacob, when he was old and dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons, bowed down in worship as he leaned on his staff. Today, we're gonna talk about Jacob. And I gotta tell you, as we go through this, I'm gonna point up some key moments where this guy should not have been on this list. This guy should not have been on the list. I'm gonna be very clear. Some of you guys are saying, am I on this list? I don't really know, but I don't think you could be as bad as this guy. So listen, this is a long story, but I'm gonna paraphrase to get to the epic moment that we have this battle where Jacob actually wrestles and fights with God. But we gotta get to that point of understanding how we got to this point. So buckle up. I'm gonna use my modern day words to translate the King James Version to stuff you can understand. Jacob is a twin brother of Esau. They're in the mother's womb. Esau is born first, and Jacob says, no. He starts pulling on Esau's leg. Let me out first. But Esau comes first, but they see Jacob's holding on his heel. That's how they come into this world. It's a foreshadowing for the rivalry that will be going on, and then the two tribes that they will have later on for Esau and for Jacob. Fast forward later on, because Esau is the oldest one. Back in those days, Daddy would give you a birthright. You got it because you're the oldest one. We're the oldest people in here. Go ask your parents, where's my birthright? Go do it. But what happens is Esau is 15 years old, loves being outside. He loved working the fields, playing baseball, softball. Like we have with the Laguna East Campus, we have a softball and it's going great. We have so many injuries, right, Dan? Dan tried to run to first base and fell. And we're like, oh, Dan, I got a first aid kit, he was fine. But so Esau is outside working all the time while Jacob's inside with his mom all day. He was a mama's boy. Any mama's boys in here? Yay. You're not the good one in this story. So Jacob's inside, probably just relaxing, having the servants fan him and all this stuff. Where Esau comes home one day, he's famished, he was working all day. And he looks to his brother and goes, listen, you just made food. Can I have some of this food? Which seems normal because if any of us go into our own homes, don't we think in our mind, my family's got me? Right? My family, like my wife's gonna give me something. If she know I worked hard, I would give my wife something. My kids come home. If I was at my house, my brother would give me half of his sandwich. It just seems like a normal thing to do for family because you love them. It's close-knit. It's all this. Well, Esau comes and he's like, give me something to eat. McDonald's was closed. I couldn't get anything on the way back. And Jacob goes, listen, I have some soup here. If you give me your birthright, I'll give you this food. Should this guy be in the Hall of Faith yet? Let's just think about it, right? Should he really be in the Hall of Faith? And Esau's like, my birthright is just a cup of soup from Campbell's. Like, what? And Jacob goes, how hungry are you, brother? Because this tastes delicious. And Esau finally says, all right, that's fine. I'll give you my birthright if you give me the food. So Esau eats the food. Jacob gets the birthright. Fast forward later on, Isaac, their father, is about to pass away. And before a father passes away, he passes on the blessings that Abraham got, pass it on to Isaac. Now Isaac is gonna pass it on to Esau. So that day, Isaac calls Esau in and goes, hey buddy, it's that time. You become a man. Go make me some food. Give me some tacos, some enchiladas, some chicken parmesan, whatever they had back then. I think they had chicken parm back then. It sounds like it would be a dish that you would serve back then. You go make this food, go hunt it. We'll sit down and have a meal, and I will pass the blessing onto you, which is spiritual and financial. I mean, think about your whole entire life as the oldest one, knowing this was gonna come in, knowing that you were the one outside working the fields. You were the one out there doing the hard manual labor while your idiot little brother is sitting inside on the couch with mama. How's that feel now, Julian? Just kidding. So what does Jacob do? Jacob hears what's going on, and his mom hears what's going on, and they come up with a scheme like, hey, let's go make this food, take it to your dad, and let your dad give you the blessing. And since Isaac was blind, he can barely hear at this point, they thought it was a good idea. So Jacob prepares the meal. He goes in there, he sets it down. He's like, hey, Dad, Esau here, just made all this food for you. Eat up, and let's get to that blessing, please. And then Isaac says, man, you sound like Jacob. Let me touch you. Well, Jacob ain't no fool. He's a trickster. He wouldn't put on Esau's clothes, so he smelled like him, probably dirty and nasty because he worked in the fields. But Isaac could smell him. He could smell the clothes of Esau. So Isaac goes, well, it must be Esau. So Isaac gives Jacob the blessing. Should this guy be in the Hall of Faith yet? I'm just saying, he's gotta be in his 20s somewhere, right? He's gotta be a little older. Shouldn't he have known by now you don't treat your brothers like that? You treat your brothers like that? I feel like you might. Just kidding, I'm just kidding. You were a great man, David. I know you're great. Well, anyway, so then now Esau, what do you think his first reaction is? Let me kill Jacob. Who here as an older sibling has wanted to kill your younger siblings? They just had to look at you a little weird and you're like, I hope you die. You know, like mom, you would tell them, Mom, you're adopted. You're not even part of this family. That's the things we would say back then. You would like your little kids know hey, you're nothing in this family. I came first, you're nothing. So Esau, because his birthright is stolen, his blessing has been stolen, Esau goes, I'm gonna kill him. Yeah, I would want to kill him too as well. You stole all this from me. So then Jacob goes on the run and goes to his uncle's country. And over there, Jacob runs into more troubles. Meanwhile, I don't hear of Jacob having a conversation with God like, hey, God, I'm sorry I messed up. Shouldn't have done that one. I don't hear any of this during this entire time. I mean, this is a very religious, godly family. Abraham is his great-grandfather. Isaac is his dad. I mean, the stories that they have had of God showing up and doing amazing things has not shown up on the little brat because he's probably spoiled living inside. I just say to myself, this man does not belong in the hall of faith. He goes to the other land with his uncle. He says, hey, man, see that girl right there? I like her. What do I do to get her? And he goes, why don't you work for me for 7 years and I'll give her to you. He goes, done. Works 7 years, then finds out that he married the wrong woman because his uncle tricked him. So he goes, how can I get that girl again? And the guy goes, work another 7 years and then I'll give her to you. So he finally gets both wives. I think reaping what he sowed, he tricked everyone else. Why would he not be tricked? And then all of a sudden it gets to this point where he's now at war with his uncle over land, property, and all this. And Jacob knows, I got to get out of here. And now he has like over 400 people in his family. He has servants. And he's like, the only place I can go is back to where I came from. Wow. Esau. Wow. That's the only place that I'll be welcomed. I think it's a gamble. It's 50-50. I could die. So Jacob, this man, you know what he does? As he enters into the land where Esau is, meanwhile, Jacob hears that 400 men on chariots are coming at him too as well. Jacob's definitely going to die. Jacob decides, you know what? I'm gonna put my servants and all the women and my kids and my wives in front of me. So if the battle should come, I have enough time to exit. Wow. Should this man be in the hall of faith yet? No. I can't imagine that as a father, me not stepping before my kids and doing this. I gotta tell you, I don't think this man had any relationship with God at all. Didn't hear the stories of his grandfather and his fathers. How does he not believe in God? So this leads us to the point of where we're gonna be at today about the greatest MMA match in the entire world, better than last night. For all those who watched that, you said no. Holloway did amazing in the last 3 seconds. I want you to know it was amazing. But I can hear the angels gearing up for this saying, are you ready to rumble? I can hear it in this moment. So Jacob has sent the whole entire family in front of him, and he is left by himself. And this is what happens with Jacob. In Genesis 32, verse 22 through 30, it says, during the night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 servant wives, and his 11 sons, and crossed the Jabbok River with him. After taking them to the other side, he sent over all his possessions. Then Jacob left Jacob alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him. A man came and wrestled with Jacob until the dawn began to break all night long. When the man saw that he could not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of its socket. The man said, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. Have you ever even wrestled or boxed for 3 rounds? It's exhausting. It's tiring. You're telling me all night long to have a match with someone? Not for me. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. What is with this guy getting more blessings from every person he comes in contact with? Isn't there enough that he has stolen and taken? Now a random guy that comes up to him, he wants another blessing from him. What's he gonna steal it from? This is when it changes. The man asked, what is your name? He replied, Jacob. Your name will no longer be Jacob, the man told him. From now on, you will be called Israel because you have fought with God. The man he was wrestling with was God and with men and have won. Please tell me your name, Jacob said. Why do you want to know my name? The man replied. Then he blessed Jacob there. Let me say this. Out of all the times Jacob has something going on his entire life, thinking about the battle that's coming the next day. Who here worries about tomorrow in here? Who here worries about the possibilities of what could possibly go wrong tomorrow? You want your mind to be occupied wrestling with someone? Do you really? Or do you say to yourself, no, I need to strategize how I'm gonna get out of this. I need to strategize how to keep my friends and family safe. I need to do something. I don't have time to fight with you, God. I don't have time right now, God. Don't you know my family's in shambles right now? Don't you know I'm struggling financially? Don't you know I'm struggling with sexual addiction or drugs? Do you think I have time to wrestle with you? I have my own issues going on right now. Why do you think I wanna fight with you? If it was me, I would have been like, hey, God, can we just get like a latte and go to Starbucks? Like, can't we talk this out? I just feel like that would have been the more appropriate way to go. Like, my mind is going crazy. I'm wrestling with you right now. Like, literally, can we just break some bread and have some wine? Isn't that what you were going to do in the future anyways? Can we speed this portion up? Can we do that? Like, I just think that that's what he would have wanted other than wrestling all night long with God. I wouldn't want to do that. But here's the thing. Why does God wrestle with people? God wrestles with more people. He even wrestles with Paul. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 12, chapter 12, verses 7 through 10. It's not in your notes, but I'll read it out loud. So to keep me from becoming conceited because of the surpassing greatness of the revelation, a thorn was given in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me, to be in your mind, to take over your day, to keep me from becoming conceited. 3 times pleaded with the Lord. 3 rounds. God, not today. God, not now. God, stop it right now. 3 times pleading with God about this, that it should leave him. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then I am content with my weakness. I am content with insults. I am content with hardship. I am content with persecution. I am content with calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. The Lord wrestles with his people. And for some of you, I promise you, he's wrestling with you now, or yesterday, or tomorrow, or in the future. You know how you can tell if someone's wrestling with God? I know I can tell. Is when I know you know what the word of God says, but you refuse to follow it. God, I know I'm supposed to be baptized in 2 weeks. God, I feel it on my heart. I've been talking to my family about it. I've been talking to my kids about it. I know I'm supposed to, but not today. You're wrestling with God. God, I know I'm supposed to forgive these people that are around the corner from me, my neighbors and other people around me, but I just can't do it. You're wrestling with God. God, I know I'm supposed to be involved in certain ministries, but I don't have time. You're in a wrestling match with God. God is stirring up inside and saying, no, let's figure this out. Let's get this going. He wants you to engage with him in that moment. The question will be, though, will you wrestle with God or not? Will you wrestle with God? Because when God comes to all of us and let's say, let's work this out. Let's get rid of your troubles. Let's attack the sin you're struggling with. Do you engage in the match with God or do you say no? Jacob would not leave him alone. Jacob is wrestling with him. The man wants to leave. It's morning, it's breakfast time. Let's go. And Jacob's like, no, I know who you are now. I've had this encounter with you. I know you're not just a normal man. I know you're God. I will not let you go until you give me the blessing, until you heal my past, until you give me the future of promises and prosperity. It all changed for him in this moment. Jacob would not let him go. But there's like us, like, God, I feel you tugging on me. God, I know I'm supposed to do this, but I want to go out and do something else right now. And then you come back and you're wrestling and then you push away over and over and over and trying to go think that wrestling in the everyday life is better than wrestling all night with God. It's not. It's not. We are in terrible times. Pastor Hector talks about it all the time. These are trying times. You sit here and say to yourself, like, yeah, I want to live out here by myself without God with me. God is a fighter. He's a warrior. He's going to go before you. Hold on. Hold on. Keep holding on. Jacob did. Jacob's now in the Hall of Faith. Why is he in the Hall of Faith? Because he held on. Once he recognized and he had an encounter with God, he says, I will not let go. I will not let go. You will have to hold on. Do not let go. Whatever you're wrestling with right now, just say, yes, God. Yes, God. Yes, God, I will be baptized. I am ready to start my journey and walk with you. I'm ready to be in ministry. I'm ready to volunteer. I'm ready to be the husband I was called to be. I'm ready to be the wife that I was called to be. Go step into that and hold on. Take God with you wherever you go. Rip him through the door. Take him into work. This is a self-reflection, by the way, of Jacob's inner struggle. God wanted a relationship with Jacob. However, Jacob couldn't admit that he needed God in his weakness, that he needed to have someone with him until God touches his hip. Like, another part, in this match that's happening for 12 hours at night, all of a sudden God touches his hip and it's dislocated. Anybody ever had a dislocated hip? Who here has had a bad back? Everyone raise your hand. We all got bad backs. Sore necks. I gotta tell you, if I'm going into the biggest battle of my entire life, guess what I want? I want a fresh body. I do. I mean, if I'm going into a new job the next morning, I don't wanna be up all night with a crying kid till 4 o'clock in the morning. I have a wife, she does that for me, but I'm just saying. But you do, you want a fresh body because you wanna be prepared for what's coming on. Why? God knowing that Jacob has the biggest battle, maybe wiping out his family and his servants. He knows this is a possibility because back then, you went after him and then you went after the offspring because you didn't want them coming back. This is almost inevitable. If Esau wants to kill him, then Jacob needs a fresh body. But God touches his hip. And then guess what? When you have a dislocated hip, you can't even walk. You're gonna be pushed in a wheelchair to go into where you're at until that hip is put back in there. Why would he do that from him? Is it possible that God was like, you will have no choice now, Jacob, to believe and have faith in what I can do for you? Literally, Jacob, I'm gonna go fight him. No, I'm gonna have to go fight for you. Jacob literally is walking into this battle with can't even move and can't do anything. He is only able to have his strength through his faith because of the encounter he had with God the night before. In my weakness, he is strong. In my weakness, faith unshakable. I share this story, and every time I say it, I normally don't cry, but I cried this morning. I didn't cry at the East Campus. But I do remember there was a time where I honestly thought everything was gone and everything was ripped away from us. I really believed that we were gonna be living in a van down by the river. We ended up living in an apartment above a garage in Lodi, a one-bedroom place with 2 kids, my wife and I, and sharing one sink. And I gotta tell you, sharing one bathroom with 3 girls, why? Like, I don't get it. But I remember on my knees telling my wife, I said, babe, it's all gone. I have nothing left. I don't have any money. The account is gonna be overdrawn, because we had businesses, it's gonna be overdrawn by a bunch of thousands of dollars. Life is over, we're gonna lose the house, and we're gonna be homeless. And I'm on my knees, and listen, my wife is not Jesus. She's not Jesus. But my wife is a godly woman who represents Christ-like attributes. So as I'm on my knees crying with my head down, and yeah, I cry sometimes. I don't know if any man hasn't. I think it's the most powerful thing sometimes you can do with your wife or with someone who loves you is to see the emotion move inside you because it's important. And it also gives your wife an opportunity to be strong. As I'm sitting down and I'm crying, she looks at me and she goes, do you think for 1 minute I won't go live in a van with you down by the river? Do you think for one moment your kids won't go with you and go play in the water down by the river? Get up, we ain't leaving you. We ain't leaving you. Do you know what that did? In that moment, I was full. In that moment, like I was the happiest man in the world. In that moment, I had the strength of a community around me that could not shake me. As the storm is going around me and all the things that are going, I had the most strength in my weakest moment of my entire life. I never once have said, God, I resent the moment you gave me that, because all it did was build a relationship with my family and an understanding of my faith in God. Even the people that he brought into my life, like, God, thank you so much. In my weakness was the strongest moment of faith I had ever had. And I will never, ever, ever say, God, don't do that again. Guys, Jacob wasn't walking different only physically. He was walking different spiritually. He now engaged with God forever. No longer was his head down in regret. No longer was it in shame. He was given a new identity in God. Up until this point, he was known as the trickster, and he was known as a person of a deceiver. Can I get the worship team to come up, please? There's three moments here. One, Jacob wrestles with God. God touches Jacob's hip. And the biggest one is that God became now Jacob's God, not just Isaac's God and Abraham's God. He now had that encounter. All of us can probably at some level understand that when we are growing up, we go to church because mom and dad took you there. We pray because my dad forced me to pray for an hour at age 6, which only made it worse. But we believe and we go to church, but because they did. Until you have that encounter with God. Up until this point, I was trying to go back into the scriptures and look. I don't see one genuine prayer from Jacob to God. I don't see one moment where he is like praying and having this encounter with him. Up until this one night where he finally has the encounter with God. I've shared this before. When I was 16, I prayed to God, either you show up and save me, or I promise you, I'm gonna go do this. And it wasn't good. And sitting there and praying, I'm like, God, if you are the God of my dad, and I said that, if you are the God of my grandmother, because she was a believer, if you are the God of my family, you're gonna have to show up and do something. And he did. He did. 11 o'clock at night, sends a phone call to my house, and you have a Mexican house, you don't call the home after 8 o'clock. You know that. But 11 o'clock at night, a youth pastor from my church called and says, David, my name is Yusef Kemakayana. I want to invite you to church tonight. I want you to know that you're loved and that God sees you, and I want to give you a hug. And I went to youth group that night instead of doing the thing that I was going to do that probably I would have regretted the rest of my entire life. The moment you have an encounter with God, everything changes. Everything changes. Your prayer life changes. And one of the best things is you understand the power of God. And I will tell you this, one of the best things that God does through his power is peace. And I know like peace can't be correlated with power, but I tell you what, I know no other place I would rather be that when everything around me is swarming, family issues, life issues, addictions or whatever that are going on, where the final buzzer is about to ring, and yet still somehow you stand here and say, God, I'm good. Like I'm good. I may not know my future, but I know who holds it. What a powerful weapon to have. God, I pray as I turn over to the worship team, you hold on. You hold on. Like Jacob did, he didn't let go. You take God, you take Jesus, you take the Holy Spirit everywhere you go. Everywhere. You tug on him to walk into work. You tug on him into a conversation with your wife. Hold on. Jacob is in the hall of faith because he refused to let God go from that day forward. He took his whole entire people to Bethel because God said, go there and build an altar to me. And Jacob said, done, let's go. He was never the same. God, I encourage you in this moment to hold on to God no matter what. Let's worship together.